Hi, and welcome to the Modern Persian Food Podcast. We are food bloggers,
Beata Arabian,
and Bita Nazim Kelly, and we're here to share with you the rich flavors and fresh ingredients of Persian cooking and how to incorporate them into today's modern lifestyles.
We're excited to introduce you to the flavors, tastes, and techniques we use, and also our own cultural stories and perspectives growing up in the U.S. in a Persian family. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode number 74 of the podcast. This is Bita, and I am with the other Bita, and we are getting ready for Norooz, Persian New Year, on the spring equinox. Almost here, a day of renewal and rebirth, and hopefully a great new year ahead for everyone. And today we're going to be talking about Persian cookies, a special part of the haft-seen table, the special table that has the 7 S's that we bring in the new year with. And we want to just take the opportunity to share what Persian cookies are with our friends and also tell them about a really simple recipe so that you can actually make your own Persian cookies this year and include them on your sofreh haft-seen. Bita June, how's it going?
Hey, how are you? I've been wanting to talk about Persian cookies for some time now, so really happy to be having this opportunity to chat about one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, what makes Persian cookies so unique?
Good question. So Persian cookies, first of all, are so small. Most Persian cookies are so small. They're about 1 inch in diameter. They're tiny. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's one of the most unique things about them. The other thing is that many of them are naturally gluten-free, given the type of flours that we use in Persian cookies. There are cookies with rice flour. There are cookies with chickpea flour. We have some cookies that basically are like just almonds or walnuts with a couple of other ingredients. So there are many Persian cookies that do not even require any white flour, which is kind of nice. And then, of course, the flavors. The flavors are really unique. The aromatic rosewater, cardamom, sometimes cinnamon, make these cookies really tasty and different. So those are just a few of the things that make Persian cookies so special. Bita Jude, what are some of the times that, you like to have them, or traditionally we have Persian cookies?
Yeah. To your point about them being so small, they're so cute. They're like really tiny, and a lot of them have kind of like different shapes. So they can be a little bit labor intensive to actually like hand press them into these little molds to get them perfect. But they are so beautiful, and they look so beautiful like on a table display, especially for like Norooz or some of the other occasions that we have these beautiful cookies, or as like at a Persian wedding, a lot of times at the sofreh act, and that's the place setting that the bride and groom sit at and actually exchange their vows at. Beautiful Persian cookies are displayed there. There's such beautiful varieties that you can get from Persian bakeries or even online retailers that customize in these beautiful cookies. They usually have a beautiful display, and typically it's shared with the guest like after the wedding so that everyone can have a little bit of sweetness from the ceremony to really like bring in the new life together of the bride and groom. Other occasions that you can have these little cookies is also like really anytime you have people over. Like when you have people over for tea, it's a very Persian thing to have tea in the afternoon. And these cookies are delicious paired with dark amber colored Persian tea. So like a little tea service or tea ceremony, and really any other kind of like event that you're having. I know that you actually love sharing Persian cookies, like even during the holidays, and have like cookie parties and include Persian cookies. So I think that that's super fun. And also just like saying that, like they really are like a perfect treat for any occasion.
Any occasion. The other thing is they're so easy to eat. I appreciate the fact that most of them are so tiny, is you can pop them, for a quick snack with tea, without tea, and they're not going to fill you up. You can manage your portions. You can have 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And it's no problem. So they're kind of nutritious based on the type of flour and nuts that they have. And you can choose to adjust sugar if that's an issue for you. So I just really appreciate the qualities of Persian cookies.
Right. And a lot of times when you see at Norooz, sometimes if you go Eid Dani and going and paying respects to the elders or other people in your community as part of Norooz, you'll see that there's not just one type of cookie. A lot of times there's like a display of like 5 or 6 different types of Persian cookies. And even at the little Persian grocery market, sometimes you can buy like a mixed variety pack essentially of the cookies. And to your point about them being small, that you can have multiple, you can try all of them that way because they aren't that big and you can kind of see the differences in the textures and in the flavors of all these beautiful, cute little, sometimes very colorful cookies.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up about how beautiful they are too, because they could be part of your table decor. And of course, symbolism in our occasions, like you said, on the sofreh. We do talk about them briefly. We touch on them in our episode number 6, where we talk about Persian desserts in general, shirini.
Yes.
Yeah, so I do appreciate the cultural tie-in of how Iranians like to have shirini and cookies with their tea. What can you tell us about the sort of tea ceremony that we have? And we do talk more about that in episode 9 when we reference Persian tea and chai as a topic of our whole episode.
Yeah, that's a fun episode because we really kind of talk about how to make tea and how you have a big kettle of hot boiling water and then you have a smaller tea kettle that actually balances on top of the larger one with like a tea concentrate with like dark tea leaves, and it's brewing and it brews to this beautiful amber color. So yes, learn more about that in our episode number 9 about tea and chai. Tea is offered all day in a Persian household. Like from the moment that you wake up, you can have tea, and you can have it with sugar for like breakfast, a chai shirin. A lot of homes have it like brewing all day in their house. But other typical times is like when you have someone over, or in like the afternoon or after dinner or something like that, is to enjoy the tea. And when you have Persian tea, it's not just, okay, here's some tea if you want like sugar on with it, or, sugar cubes, but there's always something served with the tea. It could be like dates, it could be some of the cookies that we're talking about, but there's always something sweet that accompanies the tea. And usually the tea can be served in beautiful little cups. I always love the visual of a tray full of teacups that are all like very small, petite little teacups that are glass and clear, and you can see the beautiful color of the tea. Sometimes the tea is brewed with a little bit of cardamom in it too, to add a little bit more Persian love and flair. But yeah, it feels like a ceremony when you have like the tea and then the accoutrement that go with it, and sharing it with your guests or with your family or even just with yourself. It's nice to just pour a lovely cup of tea.
Yeah, and it's become a tradition or a habit for many Persians to have something sweet with their tea, whether it be a sugar cube that they sort of keep in their mouth as they're sipping the tea to add the sweet flavor to the tea, or with a date or a little cookie or some sort of shirini is very traditional. And I think it's become like habit forming. At least I see that with my mom.
Yeah.
She cannot drink a black Persian tea without some little yummy sweet cookie.
Yeah, it makes it so much more fun that way too. I personally would love to be able to kind of make some Persian cookies myself. I have memories of being a really young girl and having my grandmother and my aunt in our home, and I remember them making Persian cookies. And I remember specifically the nokhodchi, which is like a little clover shaped mold. And they were like painstakingly doing each little one at a time and pushing it through to keep the shape of it. So I know that it can be very labor intensive and a definite labor of love to make these cookies. But I'm hoping that you can share with me and our listeners your Naan Berenji recipe, which is a rice flour recipe. And actually, this cookie was originated in Kermanshah, which is where my parents are actually from. So I think it would be super special if I try to make these cookies. So can you tell me the recipe, and would you walk me through it so that I can take a stab at it and make it and include it on my haft-seen this year? And just so for everyone knows, we're actually going to talk more about Norooz and specifically our haft-seen tables in next week's episode. And in the meantime, if you do want to learn more about Norooz, we did have a really great 3-part series last year, episodes number 22, 23, and 24, if you want to learn more. But we will definitely be talking more about Norooz and our haft-seens next week. So Bita Jun, would you please tell me how to make Naan Berenji?
I would love to. I'd love to teach you how to make Naan Berenji and all of you listeners. It's really not hard. It requires just a few ingredients. The ones that are unique you can get online or from a Middle Eastern market. I do have the recipe on my blog and my website. It's also part of a digital download cookbook that is just almost out, and it will be available any day now. But yeah, you really don't need much in terms of equipment. A bowl, something to stir with, and many of our Persian cookies and recipes are this way. You're using your hands, you're using very minimal appliances, which I appreciate. So the ingredients include oil, powdered sugar, rice flour, and in my recipe, the flavoring is primarily from rose water. And I have egg yolks. So there are variations in the recipe. Some folks put a little bit of cardamom in their rice flour cookies, Naan Berenji. However, I keep it flavored with rose water. It is a delicate dough to work with. I'll note that using rice flour produces a dough that, it's kind of different. You got to get used to its consistency. And I've found through trial and error that it really helps to work with the colder dough. So once you've mixed everything together, I would recommend that you refrigerate this dough for a minimum of 2 hours and overnight if possible. And then it is much easier to work with this dough. Roll it into the tiny balls, flatten it, and now the fun begins. It's a lot of fun to decorate these little cookies. I used to make the pretty designs that I have in my images, and which I like to do when I make them at home. I have a cookie press. It's really easy to use. So I make a little ball with the chilled dough, and I use the cookie press, which imprints a pretty floral design, a flower. There are different patterns in my cookie press. Mine is plastic. There are fancier ones out there. And you don't even have to have a cookie press. There are other ways. For example, if you have a thimble that you use to protect your thumb, if you happen to be doing any hand sewing, you can use the circular shape and the inner rim of the thimble to press down and make a floral pattern using the thimble. You can also simply use a small little teaspoon to do the same thing. And then finally, these rice flour cookies, Naan Berenji, they usually have some tiny little black seeds, either poppy seeds, or I usually have chia seeds in my pantry. They look very similar to poppy seeds. Sprinkle them with the chia seeds or poppy seeds and sort of press it down lightly so they stay intact. And that's it. I also have played with some gold edible marker and gold glitter. I love anything gold on Persian cookies and desserts and cupcakes. It elevates it, makes it look so fancy and pretty. And that's about it. With these Persian rice cookies, you don't have to try to brown their edges or anything. They stay white in color. And yeah, so I hope you try it.
Yeah, I love how you called out the thimble method of pressing the cookies. I don't have a cookie press, but I actually remember my grandma and my aunt using the little thimble, pressing like basically ring shapes, like 3 ring shapes on top of the little tiny little cookies.
Yeah.
And that's actually really special. So I'm definitely going to use a thimble to make the impressions on mine.
Yeah.
So the little like poppy seeds or the chia seeds that you put on top, do you need to like put anything on the cookie itself for those to stick? Do you need to like brush it with egg or anything?
I don't. I think if brushing it with egg might cause the cookie to brown a little.
Okay.
Is the only thing. But if they fall off a little, it's okay. But they tend to stick.
Okay.
It is a fairly sticky dough. It should be okay.
Okay. Yeah. I think that sounds super easy and something that I could even bake.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so easy. Really, there's nothing to it.
I think that that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that that's going to be a great recipe for our listeners to try. I'm sure going to try it, and I'm going to be really happy to include something homemade like that on my haft-seen table.
Oh,
so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure. The other thing is, if you're buying them in a market, or they're often packaged and marketed this way, is very often Naan Berenji cookies are served alongside with the chickpea flour cookies that you love, nokhodchi cookies. And I think partly because they're both tiny. They're the 2 tiny cookies.
Yeah, those are so good. And they're such a great pairing. Yeah, you're right. I do really love them.
And they're both gluten-free.
And they're both gluten-free. Great. Nokhodchi is like one of my absolute favorites. And so for the Ask the Beats this week, how about I ask you and I can tell you what mine is too, although you know it pretty much, although I'll throw a little curveball in there too, is what is your favorite type of cookie?
My favorite dessert, first of all, is any home-baked cookie, but to nail it down, let's see, I'm not lying. Persian rice flour cookies, Naan Berenji, are probably my favorite kind of cookie. I do love them.
Oh, awesome.
Another favorite cookie of mine is the Russian tea cookies. And there are commonalities, so I see a trend here. Those are the little cookies that are tiny balls. They're really nutty. They usually have walnuts or pecans, and they're covered in powdered sugar.
Right.
So yeah, I think I love cookies with powdered sugar. Some of my Christmas cookie favorites are also cookies that use powdered sugar. So I like, I guess, a powdery cookie. So yeah, those are my two favorites. What's your favorite cookie?
So nokhodchi is definitely like one of my favorites, and that's the chickpea flour one that comes in the clover shape that we were talking about earlier. So that's definitely one of my favorites. But I really, really love Naan Berenji, and there's like these walnut cookies. They have different versions of them. They have ones that are a little bit bigger, like I would say like 2 inches across, and they do have the little tiny ones, about 1 inch across ones as well. But what I love about them is they have like a little crunchy exterior, and then the inside of it is like super gushy and really soft, and I really love it. And it's made with walnuts. It's like a walnut cookie, and I think that that's like one of my favorite cookies, especially when it's soft and gushy inside.
I love those too. It's one of my few memories of Iran is having one of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah, soft and the yummy inside. They are so
good. Very chewy and gooey inside. So those are two that I really love, but it really brings back memories of being in Iran and actually going and buying the cookies there, and they come in like these little boxes, and those are really great souvenir sofreh to bring back when we would go to Iran. And when my mom goes to Iran now, she always brings those back. And the interesting thing about buying cookies in Iran is you buy it by the pound. Do you want like a 1 kilo box or a 2 kilo box? And then they like weigh it right there for you and then package it up to go.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think many places do it that way here.
So yeah, so it brings back really fond memories of traveling to Iran and having these great cookies. Another one is kok, which is like layers of phyllo dough, layered with powdered sugar and then folded over on top of each other. And they come like these diamond-shaped, powdered sugary, delicate, very fragile cookie. So there's a lot of really great, delicious Persian cookies. We encourage you to either try to make some yourself, like a simple recipe like this Naan Berenji recipe, or going to your Persian market or one of the many Persian cookie bakers online and order some for Norooz. Have them on your haft-seen. And again, we'll talk more about haft-seen and setting your own haft-seen next week, so that hopefully you can bring in a prosperous and healthy and wonderful Persian New Year.
Thank you so much.
Okay, until next time, thank you so much, Bita Jun. Thank you for listening to our listeners. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Modern Persian Food Podcast with Beata and Bita. Thanks for spending time with us. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, consider telling a friend or giving us a good rating. You can subscribe to our show for free on your favorite podcasting app, or find us online at modernpersianfood.com or on Instagram for the recipes and information we talked about today. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and see you next time.